So, all right, I'm just going to introduce the panel now. So, this is Ken. He's an experienced mobile app and game designer who's currently the CEO of a Toronto-based studio called Massive Damage. They just released Zombie Puzzle. It's doing very well. I think I saw it in the App Store not too long ago. Features. So,
Thank you.
next to him is Sebastian. I'm sure you've heard of his game Sandbox. He also did Grub. He's a co-founder of Pixel Game Studios. Next to him is Josh Nilson. He's the CEO and co-founder of a Vancouver, Canada-based studio called Eastside Games. They're independent and they create really hilarious and addicting mobile and social games. You may have played or seen Pop Farm on Facebook. Definitely, an app that's been doing very well for very many years now. I know they're really proud of that game. My name is Morgan. I'm a co-founder of a new Vancouver startup called Hidden Door, and we just soft launched our newest game, Happy Flock. We're in the Indie Prize Showcase if you're interested. So, I'm just gonna start off with the big one. How do you engage your players enough to become fans? I think that's why we're all here. I think Josh wanted to start off with this one.
Yeah, hey everyone. I've been actually having this question with a lot of indie developers, so my answer has changed a lot. And I think a better way to start this off is to think about this in context to what the talk is. So how do you engage your players enough to become fans, but on an indie budget? And I think what it boils down to, what we forget as people that create content, make great games, really drill down on metrics like what our player funnels are, user acquisition, and all that stuff, comes down to just good old-fashioned customer support. It's something that gets forgotten about or cut till the last minute. And one of the examples I like to use when at Eastside Games is, do we want to be, when we think about if we want to open up something that's not a game, like a coffee shop, what type of coffee shop do you want? Do you want to start building Starbucks as a chain right away? Or do you want to build like a really small, focused on service, hipster coffee shop like Sightglass or something like that? And just make sure the experience for every player is amazing and awesome. And I think how you answer this is you look at your internal culture and you make sure every single person in your culture, if that's a engineer, designer, producer, founder, they really think of how this question on a day-to-day basis in everything they do. How do we make a user a player? How do we make a player a fan?
Yeah, so I'd like to add to Josh's answer the fact that it's really about what kind of additional value you can bring to the players so that he's become like that person who is more and more interested into what you as a developer is going to bring him in terms of experience and relationship to the developer through the game.
Just to, I guess, accentuate Josh's point regarding customer service, I think, it does take a fair bit of effort to provide good customer service, but it does pay off in the long run. I think you're just removing excuses for anybody to kind of think ill of your company, especially if something goes wrong, like an IAP purchase doesn't work, or something with their particular with their game account kind of went awry because of some bug. And if you can address that, within a reasonable time frame. And for these players, I think if they've ever played any of these other games put out by the big companies, if they email for support, they kind of go into like this abyss, black hole of never to be heard from again. Maybe like 2 months later, you might got an email that said, "Hey, how's it going? Are you still playing?" But I think for us, it wasn't like a hard set goal, but I think we definitely tried to respond as basically as quick as possible. The longest anybody would expect to wait for a response from us was maybe like a day, 2 days, like the extreme, just because something happened on a weekend maybe. But other than that, usually people get their, especially if it had anything to do with their account, if they, you prioritize some of these issues, and I think that's the key, just to make sure that nobody feels abandoned when problems occur.
It becomes kind of like a culture thing, right? Like, think of big organizations, even big box stores. If you ever go to Costco and you ever have a problem with return, like, I know some people have returned some ridiculous things at Costco, but if you're a member at Costco and you go to return something, you just know there's going to be, if you're a member, no hassle whatsoever. That's just baked right into their culture. So I think as game studios, you got to really have that baked into your culture from the start. And if you don't, then don't expect to have kick-ass customer support, because you're not going to have it. Because if your engineer doesn't care as much about that, it's only the community's manager's problem, then I don't think you can win that way.
Oh, I do have something to add regarding that. One of my engineers, he loves engaging with the actual players, so he actually enjoys every morning when he comes in to knock out like maybe 10 trouble tickets. Like that's not even his job, but he likes to spend like 20 minutes and just resolve a bunch of problems for players, and then get back to his regular job. And that's just something he enjoys doing. Nobody's asked him to do it. This is just this thing now that he does, which is, I think, is pretty awesome.
Great. So I think the takeaway from there is, if you want to get fans and create fans from your players, it's about treating them like a fan. It's about being accountable to these people. And if you're, say, a baseball fan, and your favorite baseball player takes the time of day for you, you're going to be a lot more loyal. If you meet your favorite baseball player and you feel like you weren't respected, you probably will not see the point of playing or sticking with this game or having any sense of loyalty if they're not loyal to you, and you might move on to the next game. So it really is a good retention tool, your CS technique. So this is a good one. Should you have multiple platforms, in dealing with this? There's so many tools out there. How do you even begin, especially if you have a smaller team, to manage these or choose the right one that suits your game?
So I will try to answer that one. When we started the sandbox, it was myself handling all the community management, and we were looking at on which social network we should actually try to gather that community of players so they're just in one place. My recommendation would be try to open as many accounts as possible, so at least it creates some SEO and online presence. And for a week or two, just see on which social network your users are more responsive, or you see more input from users. Because maybe your community of players would be people who are more using Twitter and Facebook, or who are more connected on YouTube and or Reddit networks. Why not Instagram, Pinterest? So try open as many as possible and check which one takes first. But after some time, and you feel this will be the one or two places where your users are communicating the most with you, you should focus your effort on expanding that one.
Oh, and sometimes you can incentivize users to like your Facebook page, and you kind of basically funnel all of them into one space. So most of our engagement with our players, outside of actual dealing with in-game issues or in-game communication, is done in Facebook, where when we were incentivizing Facebook likes, we managed to get up to for us it was a decent amount, like 35,000 likes, and then you have a channel to put out content that they can enjoy and kind of come back and kind of remember, even if they're not playing your game anymore, they still stick around to enjoy the content, especially if you're specifically focused on a genre that you understand well.
Yeah, I think another important question. Yeah, I'm that guy. I'll add my own question to the slide. Another important question to take from this is do you have enough time to implement all these? So I think what happens, we do it in our own studio too, is we say, okay, we need to get our community done. Here's 2 weeks. Make sure you tick off all these boxes for all of these different channels and see if it works. Really, you have to start planning from the start of the project and kind of organically build that into your game, what channels you want. and allow time for iteration, just like game design. So you want to work closely with your creatives and your artists and your game designers to do that, because one of the big friction points we have in our studio is we say, okay, well, now we need to make a Facebook page or a Twitter page, and it all has to match the same branding, and we've only left a week to do it all, instead of planning it right from the start. Or even better, because everyone does that now. Even better, find a way to organically like bake in all of those different platforms in a meaningful way in the game. Make it part of the game. If you have like a newspaper clipping in the game, which we're coming out with a game soon for iOS called Munchie Farm, make sure you put it in so it kind of it just feels organic, and it just feels like it's part of the game, and it's something fun that players will want to share out. I think everyone's past the pop-up windows where you just aggressively invite all your friends and do all that stuff, and it's more about the meaningful, something funny that people want to share out. You make it easy for them to share out, but you make it kind of a two-way street.
So, what are some of the best tools for player support? These are a few.
I can start off. So we started off with just basically having people use our bulletin board system and forum system and email, and we actually found a tool recently called HelpShift that's actually worked out really well for us. It basically helped us create FAQs, and we try to funnel all our players through that one channel, so that on our side, because I have multiple team members who wear a whole bunch of different hats, like including that one engineer that likes to do customer service stuff, he can go into the same HelpShift account and knock out stuff. Everybody has visibility to what's actually going on. So if there's something went wrong and there's like a ton of support requests, everybody's kind of aware of it quite easily because of that kind of one place that holds all the support issues. I guess the other tool I kind of put up there was something like Crashlytics. That helped us when whenever we initially launch a game. Any kind of tool that lets you understand why your game is crashing and where it's crashing is handy. I don't know if they're on Android yet or not, but we were using it for our native Please Stay Calm app.
We don't use any specific tool outside to aggregate all the different networks. However, I would like to say that what's really important here is to give a public face and easy access from the game or the website of the game to one place where players can see, they can reach you at. It's not just a contact form, but for example, you can have a button in your game that links to the support forum directly, or your Facebook page, or even better to a FAQ where you would list, for example, all the most common answers to issues you've had before. That will be also really helpful to simplify and reduce your treatment time and handling each request individually. We at Pixel are really, for the sandbox, we are very concentrated on Facebook, as we've gathered more than 500,000 fans there. It's good for one-to-one support, but it's not really a public system where anyone can see what are the other players' issue and exchange on that. So I definitely give a try to HelpShift. And in terms of also how to improve your user support, a good way is to fix your bugs at the source. And Crashlytics is the SDK we use to track any bug and crash and receive automatically all the like debug reports from the device, because all your users, specifically smartphone and tablet users, might not be tech savvy and know exactly how to collect logs. So it's definitely something I wanted to have listed in this slide.
Yeah, for us at Eastside Games, obviously we have a huge Facebook presence, so we use Facebook. But actually one of the best tools that's not up here is just a daily email. So we started doing this back in the day when we did Gmail support, and we just started doing it again. The daily email is awesome and everyone can do it. And it just goes back to the original point of it's a culture thing. So every day the community manager or the producer send out the email to everyone on the team that says what the current bugs and issues are and where people are having them. Then a lot of discussion gets started, and you can do that kind of within, if you're using Scrum or whatever methodology you're using, to then prioritize those bugs to figure out what the messaging should be to the players, rather than creating this sort of friction within your teams. We also use, you can use things like Sensor Tower on this that will also give you an overview on what your stars are like, and Attentive as well. I think the most interesting thing about this slide, though, is from the four of us, we all had different tools that we used. So I think it's important just to use some sort of tool and start thinking now, even if you're just a 1 or 2 person indie shop, or even if you're a big company, if you don't have one, you should push the people that make those decisions to have it, to make sure you have a CRM of some sort. So we built our own, but you could use a lot out of the off the shelf. Tim Tay's talk today from Kano Apps was awesome about that, about the danger of customer support, because you do have a lot of people coming through. Imagine a player that's played a game for years and years. They're kind of a big deal, and they get some stock answer. You could risk not having tools in place, and you could push your players away that way. So you want to make sure you start thinking about those things as well. Ours is really simple. We just flag players based on player behaviors, spending, engagement, friends, that sort of stuff. But we put them in really basic buckets and a really simple star system. So if people aren't sure with what to do with that player, they can at least escalate it to a lead and say, hey, can you help me out with this player? They're having a problem with this bug. They've played for 4 years. It's obviously not a problem on that. Because if that player gets back the, have you tried to close your browser and reopen it? They'll be like, have you tried playing a different game, jerk face? And they're gone, right? You're never going to get them back.
So I think just the important thing also is when you're conducting with your players, it doesn't necessarily mean matter what tool you use. It's just that you're able to get fast, effective, one-on-one service to your players. So, again, whatever works for you, you'll find it out, based on your demographics. So when I worked at Eastside Games, which is a very analytics, data-driven company, I was doing a lot of CS there, and actually delved into to find trends or correlations between response times and user engagement after. So what I found is a huge difference in day one service for a player who's written in with any manner of issue with your game, and then compared it with the response time that was 2 to 7 days. So I found a drop of 25 or 28% in revenue overall for these users. And the most interesting one actually is that we found that day one correspondence is 5 times more effective in converting first-time purchasers. So what we really found with these queries is that when a new player or a player who's never spent in your game, writes in, and if they get great service, they get it right away, you show that you care about their problem, they're much more likely to invest in your game. There's a personal connection there. They trust your game. It's one of the most important things, obviously, to remember in a CS department, but as a company, that's revenue that you don't want to lose because you didn't respect the power of good CS, essentially. CS sort of pays for itself, depending on how good it is.
If I could just add one thing to that, Morgan.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's also awesome that Morgan did this, and I actually didn't know she was doing this. And she published it on Gamma Sutra, and I didn't read the email, and then it was just published. And I read this article on Gamma Sutra, and I was like, this is brilliant. And then it was actually Morgan's article.
Thanks, Josh.
So sometimes I think that's a great case on, we preach that we're these data-driven companies, and of course, we have to stay profitable to provide jobs, and we also want to make great games. But sometimes the people that make the decisions are so head down, worrying about all the player acquisition, building the games, timelines, budgets, that sort of stuff, that if you manage community, you got to just look within your own culture. And our culture is all about fail faster and, ask forgiveness. Basically just go fuck up. So she went and she just did this and proved to us, if we put the metrics out, if we do this, we're going to increase revenue. So we totally revamped our entire system and made it a priority. The one thing I would stress on this that we didn't do from the start, and now we have done, and it's really good, is whatever have terms of service, and it sounds stupid, but actually like print them out, make them visible so everyone knows. So now in the bottom of that daily email we get out, it actually says our terms of service internally is every email is answered within 24 hours. So at least then the team knows what their metric for success is. And sometimes we don't hit that. But when we don't hit that, we think about that. We think about how could we improve that. Say it's an outage and those emails last 48 hours. But before there wasn't really anything to quantify if that was a success or a fail for this customer support team. So I don't know, what do you think about the terms of service?
No, I mean, the word to use was quantifying, really. Determining your targets and keeping them visible for the team. I mean, CS can become really quickly an open-ended sort of like, oh, I'm going to dabble over here, or maybe this guy's happy. But, really looking at it in a very analytical way and breaking it down to hit your goals and knowing like what outcome you're looking for. In this place, we don't want to lose potential purchases.
And these are internal too, so don't get me wrong. You don't want to answer an email back and be like, we promise we'll answer emails within 24 hours, because it's just really hard to live up to those expectations. These are internal metrics that we hold, and then based on our volume, we kind of let our players know when we'll get back to them.
So from this, we have some bullet points on a couple targets that you might want to reference if you're thinking just brainstorming targets to hit for. Increasing your coverage to 7 days a week so that, obviously you can do day one responses to players. This means we have people coming in on the weekends, or people who are at least vigilant on the walls and on email on the weekends. So always, a little bit of community infiltration is always helpful. You may even make a fake Facebook account, and go in and become active in your own community.
We would never make a fake Facebook account. That's against Facebook terms of services.
Right.
I got you, AJ.
Oh, sorry.
Real accounts only, real people, we got it.
All right. It's all hypothetical, actually. So. Not being stingy with players, they're virtual goods. They're just not really costing you anything. In fact, it's probably going to make you more money if you err on the side of generosity, and side you're not getting this repeat cheater coming in every day, making your life heck. Just showing that you're not afraid to give back, and when in doubt, if it's a first time complaint, you're gonna try and make them a happy customer. It's just like retail, I imagine. So also creating a filter system for new tickets, just to highlight, find ways to identify, you should treat all players equal in a sense, but when you can't, you want to make sure if it's a first time complaint, it's the first time someone's connecting with your game, make it the best experience possible, make sure you hit those people. Formulating an not an auto response, but basically we call them canned responses. So just if you know that something broke in your game and you're going to get 1 million support tickets that day, preparing something that you're all in agreement, personalize it to the person's name, but be prepared to answer and deal with all those issues quickly, effectively, appropriately, and really be good on briefing the team to hit that, because walls can explode, but when you just let everyone know what's really happening and you're trying to fix it, people get a lot nicer, and they generally wait it out with you. And again, Josh mentioned before, sending a daily CS breakdown report to your team is great, because a lot of not all developers are this way, but some people just don't care. They haven't been made to care about what your CS department or what your tickets are like. But really, I mean, programmers should care about the bugs. Designers need to care about how happy the players are, what features they're liking, what are even player suggestions. It affects us all. So keeping the team up to date, they're gonna. We find that they ask more questions. People have suggestions. So.
Just one thing I'd like to add, Morgan, really about the increase the coverage to 7 days a week, even going a little bit further than that, is we know that players, the peak of activity of like the regular mobile player is on the weekend, and then in the week it's getting down. So as an indie developer, if you prove that you have more of this small boutique kind of communicating rather than your big company that only works on like 35 hours a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then not anymore, there is really a strong chance to increase the connection with the player and the engagement with him. And tools like Facebook now allow to schedule in advance your posts, so even though you can take your weekend off, you can still post announcements or other kind of posts that will make look like you actively and proactively looking for players to engage with you on the weekend and reinforce the idea of like this idea.
So next, what's the best way to deal with overwhelming amount of support requests? So successful games have this issue all the time.
I guess I'll start. What helped us with our game? I'm not sure if it's relevant to any games that don't have any kind of social chat element, but for us, we had a whole bunch of volunteer moderators to kind of almost be like the first line of defense. Like they all understand the game mechanics really well, and and they're playing at the same time the other players are. So at the very least, they're able to answer some basic questions. And they almost kind of like triage some of the issues for the real support people. And actually, our main community person who handles all the support stuff, she was actually a player before, so I hired her from the player pool.
Nice.
I think I did already talk about having a good and easily accessible FAQ that really helps. For customer support through our forums, we've tried to empower some users, so they could be like our VIP users, and they would have access to extended rights and permissions, so they could answer other users and help us deal with sometimes the peak of additional requests. So I think it would be. I agree with you on the fact that you should, if you have a community big enough, try to build several levels and try to have those gold members.
Yeah, I would also say to this, the last point is really be transparent and authentic. Everyone just wants, an honest answer. You're working on it, you're doing something, but also give them something to do. So a lot of times with our players, we'll give them contests. Right now we have, and let them know if it's an outage or something that you're getting a lot of requests for, like in Pop Farm, we actually have sort of a clan system, and everyone sort of, I guess, battles by doing these events, and there's 50 people in a rally that are trying to do all these time-based events. If you ever have a bug there, it's insane, and we just get loaded with support requests. So I think what's important is on as many communication channels as possible, put that out there so it gives players that, like when players are angry at your game, that's a great thing because they're passionate and they care about it. If you give them outlet in a way that they can help you, then we've actually found that in times of crisis, players will be like, they're arguing with other players sometimes, but at least they're engaged and they're kind of working together. Or, hey, they put together this FAQ about what we can do. They're extending the time on the rally. Don't worry about it. It's going to be there. Sometimes we'll give them a contest to do. And so you can do a lot of things. So make sure you you try out a lot of things before you have a big outage, so you know kind of what works, and then players can do other things at that time. We also push them to other games during that time as well, either our other indie games that we play or other our own internal games, so they can play during that time, and just let them know you're working on it, and I think that's the best number one thing you could do.
Yeah, I would also recommend if you're running any kind of social game to be able to have any kind of like a headlines area within the game that they can see the latest news, and also push notifications are really handy for being able to just get the message across to everybody at the same time.
Push notification, if you have too much push notification, it's a little bit harassing sometimes, but you can have in-app messaging system, so we trigger at specific points of the game pop-ups to inform about either promotion, contest going on, or even like apologies message when we fucked up with some configuration of the game and it was broken for some hours.
So how do you handle complaints, critics, and negative comments from your players?
I'm a weirdo. I just jump right in, and I've actually gone into our own game chat system and on our forums as myself, the CEO of the company, and I think you have to balance a certain level of transparency with while keeping your emotional and temper, even if the other guy is like a super troll. I find I've been able to manage successfully to answer some weird complaints and accusations of people have really strange ideas about what you guys do and why you do what you do. If you can answer them just mostly, I guess, come across completely authentic and explain that, hey, sorry about this really big, really bad bug. Our team is only like 6 people creating this content every week, and sometimes things slip through, but we always make up for it. We give out freebies and stuff if there's issues, and we're definitely going to do that this time once things are fixed. And I'll have my guy he's working on right now. We're hoping to get something done in the next 20 minutes. And you put something out like that, nobody can actually argue with you. It kind of basically shuts down the complaint stream right away, and then you actually get other people who come in and defend you because they've seen this cycle before. They understand what's going on, and sometimes it's easy to just let the complaint sit there and wait for somebody else to defend you if you have built up this fan base.
Yep, I agree, and I think as an indie developer, the biggest risk for you is to just try to defend yourself or to just ignore the complaints, bad review, and just focus on the positive feedback. But I think that would be a big mistake as an entrepreneur myself. I've never been as much productive on improving our game and product as from reading the bad reviews and critics and using them to improve the product. So all those bad critics and bad reviews, they bring more value to us than all the positive and 5-star review we could get, which I don't mean that we don't want 5-star reviews, of course we do. And so whenever we have a chance to contact back the user who left that bad review because he left an email or some other way to reach him, we try to go deeper into an analysis, exchange with him, and eventually, if we're really thankful and the discussion has been productive, we sometimes send stickers or T-shirt as gift to thank him. And we might have turned him into like a fan, I hope.
Whiskey helps a lot when you're crying yourself to sleep at night with your bad reviews. The biggest thing you could do that we found as we grew, because now we're 40 people, is for community managers, make sure that you really have your terms of services. You know them inside and out, and you're constantly updating them. If you don't have one, there's a lot of stock templates you can use to make one. And that you also know that whatever platform you are, you also have their terms of services, and So when you have pushback from people that are getting out of hand or maybe calling the office and doing that, not that it happened to Eastside Games, but it did, yeah. But you want to make sure you push back and you say, okay, your account could lead up to being banned, because if you're violating a game term of services, this is the one that you're violating. You could read it here. Go ahead, read it, know it, but you should also know your platform. If that platform's Google Play, web portal, iOS, Facebook, and all the people at those different organizations, they always have great community folks as well. So if you have somebody that's violating something to do on those platforms, then just push that back on that and say, when you sort that out, you have to be compliant with our game, and by playing the game, you agree to be compliant and you're breaking those rules. So that's what we always do, and once you do that, we find it's better than just them arguing with the community manager. The other thing I would stress is make sure that if you're a community manager or you're somebody that's a lead of a community manager, set up a clear escalation process that can document when things do get out of hand. So you document it all, and then you have an escalation. So when you get this point, you can escalate it. It's really weird with games. We don't think of it like other businesses, but it's just like a business like any other business, right? If you have a restaurant or a hotel and you have a problem with somebody that's the front line dealing with it, there's an escalation process in order that can go all the way up the chain. So just think about that and write that down for your studio, even if it's just 2 or 3 people, so you know. If you're only 2 or 3 people, it's great to get somebody else's input on it because you're going to be in a heated battle. You want somebody else to come in and almost moderate you and to make sure that you're all compliant within your sort of game rules.
Yep. I think 2 people handle in the same company handle an issue can also allow to play like bad guy, good guy situation. So if the first person...
Are you the bad guy?
I don't know. I try to be the good guy, offering stuff after.
So everyone complain to Pixel if you want a shirt. And that's basically what it's saying. 1-star review, you get a shirt, and then you change it to 5-star.
So this is sometimes a hot topic, but should you look at outsourcing your CS? Is it worth it to have an in-house CS? There's a lot of outsource companies, throughout the world. But
I can't imagine outsourcing RCS. Like it doesn't, the kind of issues that people come up with. Our game is pretty mature now. You really have to understand what was actually going on in the game to really effectively handle the players' issues. And it's pretty hard to find outsourced CS that gives a crap about anything.
It would kind of be like outsourcing the front desk for a hotel. You go and it's a different company that operates your front desk, and that's your first interaction most of the time with your people that are paying your wage. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like outsourcing your servers in a restaurant, and then there's just a manager that watches over them or something. It doesn't really make sense.
I agree. I think it doesn't make sense to outsource your customer support until you it's something you can't handle internally anymore, meaning that you have such a big game and big studio that and so many requests that only someone external can help you with.
Yeah, but wouldn't you use that as an opportunity to grow up that foundation and culture of your team? So instead of outsourcing, that should scale. Like some of the best organizations in the world, they have that sort of scalability. So the way I envision it is, and by envisioning, I'm just copying great organizations that I know, like Supercell, is that you always have those positions available, because I think customer support is and then community management and director of community management and all that, that's just a great way that it's another new career path, and you can get people that are maybe starting in the industry answering tickets, but they could work their way up, or they can maybe become designers, maybe designers move over. But I see it in our studio as a great opportunity of it's a great way that people that aren't really used to games, because it's such a new position, can get their foot in the door and can work at it and have a career in it. So I would never give those positions away, because they're the people I talk to every day to say, like, what's happening with this? You're talking to a player that spent thousands of dollars. I don't want to give that information to someone else.
Definitely. I would agree that it's something that should scale with your company. It's also a great junior position. It's even great no matter what position you want to eventually end up in. it's the best way and the quickest way to understand the nature of the game. So it's just something to consider when even hiring people to put them in the jungle for a week and then see what they think. Another thing is, if you do choose to outsource your CS, just be really careful because my team last year, went out and then just started testing the CS of different games within the same space as us, and it was like actually a little disturbing how poor the quality was. People who never heard back. We tried different things like, emailed in saying, I spent money, but I didn't get what I paid for, and I couldn't even tell if I was talking to a machine or a person, and the conversation ended when I was being asked things like, okay, give this exact transaction number. Well, the game was actually for kids. So if you say a 13-year-old is coming in and complaining to you, and the only way you'll even start to talk to someone is if they give a specific number that there actually was no instruction given to me on how I would get this number. Well, definitely, actually, I just liked the game. I didn't actually have a problem. Based on that, I actually, on a personal level, was turned off from playing. Again, be careful with that. For sure. I think it's something that's very scalable though for any company, and there's some real all-star CS people you can hire that you can do a lot with even 5 people. So, oops, sorry, my tablet went to sleep.
Oh, we know your password.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's back. So we're back to basically the last question, which is where we began. What's so important about having a fan instead of a player, and especially as an indie?
You want to start with this one?
It was really amazing to see, talk to a lot of people and ask this question to a lot of indie developers this week. And I'm also I'm obsessed with studio cultures. And my team, Kay, loves it because it means that I just stay out of the way and they make games, and then I go to conferences and just do stuff like this and just get out of the way so they can actually make awesome games. So I visit a lot of studios. I've been to Supercell, and I've been to a lot of other small 2-person studios, and really looking at the cultures, and then we start talking about customer support and how they do it. And I thought our tales were really unique because it seemed like, for example, in Pot Farm, and we never encourage this, but it's happening 7 or 8 times. People get Pot Farm tattoos, and sometimes not that great, but it's happened a lot of times. And then Tim Tay today talking about Kano Apps, how they've actually had multiple people, so many people that were proposing and getting married in the game that they actually made a married badge with rings, and they actually help someone get married and stuff like that. And I think that's why we should obsess about turning players into fans, because that's where once you get those fan moments, that's where you can see that you have either good branding for your studio, your IP, or your game IP, and those are the players that are going to stick around and support you, which is what you need, because even for us, that's a mid-level studio. We can't afford to go out and do $100,000 5-day acquisition budget. We have to get our fans to talk about it.
I think for us, one of the most important reasons try to grow a community and have more fans is that it really helps to make the game more and more popular, using virality, buzz, and without spending anything. And this is a very good working long-term strategy. You're investing not just short-term for a burst over launch of a game, but it's also worth for all your future updates of the game. And even a year after your game is out, you can still get a quite high number of downloads every day organically through these efforts, because they don't disappear over time. They build over and they create greater value over time.
One interesting phenomenon we're seeing, so our game is about 3 years old now, and just, it happens all the time, but I think this year there was kind of in greater numbers, people who, were playing like in the earlier stage, earlier years of the game where our game was really, really crazy buggy for like the first, I don't know, 6 months. It was insane. And we were like so on top of the CS, and I was in basically the global chat like daily, just most of the time apologizing for all the bugs. and, but I think we established a really good rapport with our players, and now we're seeing a lot of the early players who had stopped playing, out of boredom, out of whatever. Now they're coming back to see what's new in the game, and the people that have still been playing since day one, they know who all of them are. It's just a really, I think it's a really great way to kind of help, just kind of organic re-engagement by them remembering their experiences, especially in games like social games with chat and stuff where people are getting married. Like we actually did the same thing. We gave special titles to people who got married, and they got like these little badges that, just because they got married, we was like, and they met through the game. Here you go. All they had to do was email us, let us know what was going on, and yeah, really bad tattoos. It seems to be a trend.
We need to get we need to get a new stat for how many marriages games have. So it's like the average marriage per paying user or something like that. So we can get that going. Yeah, a tattoo per average bad tattoo per paying user.
So I don't know how much time we have left, but surely time for questions if there are any.
Oh, I go first? Okay, great, good talk. I was curious about one thing. We ran a Kickstarter campaign, and the plan and the budget and the timeline we had when we proposed it didn't work out, and it took way longer, right? And so then one of our fans was really upset and frustrated and really vocal about everything, and so like we just didn't really know how to deal with that situation until like one day I sent over an NDA, and then I sent over like all the confidential business information of ours, and I just gave it to them, and then all of a sudden like if anybody in Kickstarter was frustrated, this fan was now our biggest fan. Like they managed our community for us. Like she was just like, she turned into an ambassador for the game, and she just like answered everyone's questions. Oh, give these guys a break. They're doing everything they can. And so like one thing actually I was wondering, like instead of like turning like players into fans, do you ever turn players into community managers? Like is that a strategy?
Well, yeah, that's like we have like 20. I think it's like, I'm not sure the exact number, but at least 20 community moderators that they're basically reviewed based on their behavior in the chat and how much they help other players, and they get a special blue color for their name, and there's for them it's a point of pride, and they take their volunteer job very seriously. Okay. Yeah, it's great. Like I think that's I think it's helped our game a lot. Basically, they're like an extension of our company, and sometimes you get 1 or 2 times you get a person that's a little overzealous with their mod powers, and you have to demod them. But it's pretty rare. Most people are really generally really cool, and you can see because you can see their past behavior. You can kind of see how. What their temperament is like in different situations. So I think what you did made perfect sense to kind of be that authentic to your major complainer. And that's the great thing about being authentic. Nobody can claim that you're lying to them because you're not. You're just putting it out there and just saying, look, I got 6 guys. We're working on this. This is how things work here. We're doing what we can. I don't know what else I can like. I'm not going to tell you something that isn't true. Like this is how things are, and when the players see that, there's a lot of respect given for the fact that you're willing to just come right on and say stuff like that rather than just try to hide behind, like a canned message.
I'll just add that there's this that happens with Pop Farm and in the communities of games that Josh and I have worked on, and there's one individual that really stands out. He's the best fan and he's the worst fan, and he actually has a lot of power within the community. And you know, he's not always happy, but he is reasonable, and he has a big investment in Eastside Games game Pot Farm, but and actually runs a site that basically advertises for the studio, and so he's a great asset when he wants to be nice. And then ways to keep him happy is actually we're working on a new game. It's not for Facebook. It's not pot related, but we give him a little bit of information so he feels connected to the studio, and he's just so positive then. And again, he's helping us with acquisition just by being a part of the games that he loves. And the people who can be the most negative, surely is because they feel some personal connection to your product.
So you all seem pretty opposed to outsourcing your CS, but I wanted to know what your opinion would be on, like, say once you reach a certain scale, maybe hiring an individual or a group of individuals internally who manage that relationship, and then kind of ensure that your outsourcing kind of, I guess, stays on target how you'd like your CS to be, and kind of maintains that quality.
I'm not totally opposed to hiring external CS. It's also, I think, a business perspective when your game is growing and you need to scale it, and matter of priority. Like, to scale your game with its success, should you hire more designers, more developers, and do you consider you should as well hire more CS internally, or it's not something you actually can do anymore, maybe because you don't have any more office space, just a stupid thing like this. And then indeed having outside, but really selected and quality, and I guess like tested with a trial period, outside external CS can work.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to if you do choose to do that, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong decision. It just be careful with who you work with. And I would agree that if that's the route you're doing, you do keep a quality control over it, because it has a huge effect on your players. So
You want to answer it?
Yeah, I absolutely not. I would never do that. Just because those are the people that are paying your bills. That's the most important component. Like, I would rather, if I had to pick one thing, then I would outsource something else. I would outsource engineering, or I'd outsource art, or I'd outsource, I don't know, my job, whatever I do, rather than outsource the people that are contacting and being the representative for my brand, for my business to them. Because they're building that relationship with the players, and players have ton of choice on where they can go. So you want to make sure that you just blow them away and you're loyal. Like, I'll walk all the way to Phil's every time I'm here, even though I'm super lazy and it's far away, just because I get the same quality every time. But if somebody there wasn't a representation of the Phil's brand one time, I might not go back ever. I might just go to Starbucks.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That's it.